The proportion of debt in the overall capital is also called dash.
Right again. Financial leverage is a valid answer.
From this data, a WACC value of dash. Well reasoned. 4% is the correct choice. It is essentially the preparation of a financial blueprint of an organization's future operations. Identify the related concept. Smart move. Financial planning is an accurate answer. According to Modigliani-Miller proposition, I with taxes, what happens to the cost of capital as the debt-equity ratio increases? Correct. Decreases is the right answer.
Which of the following appearing in the balance sheet generates tax advantage and hence affects the capital structure decision?
You're right. Long-term debt is the correct answer, which is not discount rate.
On track. Beta is the correct answer.
When debt increase, I firm value increases, I probability of default decreases, i.e. interest tax shield increases. Great thinking. I and E is the right choice. The relative proportions of debt, equity, and other securities that a firm has outstanding constitute its dash.
Right choice. Capital structure is the best answer.
When the stock market index is rising, a company may issue dash in order to meet its financial requirements. Good thinking. Equity shares is the right answer. When a company decides financing the major of their operating with debt rather than equity, the company is. Bravo. High levered is the answer.
The inability of a business to meet its fixed financial obligations like payment of interest is known as.
You chose financial risk, and it is correct. This is the process of planning expenditures that generate cash flows expected to extend beyond 1 year. Nice work. You chose was capital budgeting, and it is correct. Which one of the following states that the value of a firm is unrelated to the firm's capital structure? Or excellent choice. M&M Proposition 1 is the right answer. Degree of total leverage, the percentage change in a firm's resulting from a 1% change in. Perfect. AEPS sales is the correct choice.
Which of the following argues that the value of levered firm is higher than that of the unlevered firm?
Exactly. Both, and makes sense, and it is right choice. If the lessor and lessee are situated in 2 different countries, the type of lease is known as dash. Nice selection. Cross-border lease is the correct and valid answer. Which of the following factors does not affect the capital structure for Kiara, Rion, and Ashi? Well done. Investment criteria is the right choice. According to Modigliani-Miller proposition, i.e. with taxes, what factor affects the cost of equity? Smart pick. Leverage is the correct choice. The longer the working capital cycle takes to complete, the dash working capital a firm will need. Sharp thinking. More is the right choice. Refers to investor-supplied funds, debt, preferred shares, ordinary equity, and retained earnings. Nicely done. Capital is a solid answer. When stock market conditions are bearish, which option should Arnav, Ishan, and Ashi choose? Excellent. Debt is a brilliant choice. This decision determines the overall cost of capital and the financial risk of the enterprise. Great job. Financing decision is the accurate answer.
If cash flow position of company is good, which option should Nikita, Akhil, and Kavya choose?
Well picked. Debt is the correct answer. When return on investment is high, which option should Aisha, Kiara, and Sesha choose?
Strong choice. Debt is the right answer.
Refers to the use of debt to amplify returns from an investment or project.
You got it. Your choice leverage is right. The M&M theorem 2 states that dash is directly proportional to the company's leverage level.
Good job. Your answer cost of equity works well here.
The negative relationship between profitability and leverage is in line with which theory? Clear logic. Your choice pecking order theory is sound and 100% true. This decision is about the quantum of finance to be raised from various long-term sources.
Correct response. Financing decision is the most accurate answer.
If debt service coverage ratio is low, which option should Sneha, Neha, and Isha choose?
Valid point. Equity is true.
The pecking order theory indicates that firms prefer dash financing over dash financing. Solid response. Internal, external is a valid choice. A firm's dash ratio is the fraction of the firm's total value that corresponds to debt.
You got it. Your choice debt to value is right.
Under this type of lease, the lessor can lease the asset to more than one person dash. Ash. Correct response? Operating lease is the most accurate answer.
It is the equity risk that comes from the nature of the firm's operating activities.
Smart move. Business risk is an accurate answer. Sufficient working capital is needed to prevent a business from becoming insolvent. The Potts. Solid response. True is a valid choice.
Higher financial leverage causes dash to increase more for a given increase in dash.
Clear logic. Your choice EBIT is sound and 100% true.
What is the financial manager's objective in making capital structure decision?
Right choice. Optimal capital structure is the best answer.
When operating risk is high, which option should Vanya, Avani, and Tara choose? Nicely done. Equity is a solid answer. In Q.2, if you have 10% of shares of unlevered firm, then what is your income? Strong choice. OS 2000 is the right answer. When tax rates are high, which option should Rian, Neha, and Vanya choose?
Well reasoned. Debt is the correct choice.
Short-term sources of finance usually require money to be repaid within dash.
Nice selection. 1 year is the correct and valid answer. There is dash relation between operational expenditures and debt financing. Well done. Inverse is the right choice. Any financial benefit derived from the interest tax shield accrues to the... You're right. Shareholders is the correct answer. Which of the following could be turned into cash the easiest or quickest? Great job. Finished product is the accurate answer. The debt level that maximizes the firm's stock price is called as dash. Sharp thinking. Optimal capital structure is the right choice.
that personal leverage can replace corporate leverage is assumed by. Good thinking. Model with taxes is the right answer. Net operating income approach. Which one of the following is constant? Smart pick. Cost of debt is the correct choice. When ROI is high, which of the following options can a company have? Excellent choice. Trading on equity is the right answer. The unleveled cost of capital refers to the cost of capital for a. On track. All equity firm is the correct answer. Which component of capital structure determines the financial risk? Valid point, debt is true. The Modigliani-Miller theorem, or the Eman theory, is known for dash. Well picked. Capital structure is the correct answer. The proportion of debt in the overall capital is also called dash. Good job. Your answer? Financial leverage works well here. Operating leverage occurs due to the existing of dash in the firm. Bravo! Fixed cost is the answer. What is the one reasons why capital structure change over time? You chose market actions, and it is correct. In Q.2 of test, which company is more levered, i.e. has more risk? Excellent. Emart is a brilliant choice. Which of the following was not an assumption for the theory? Correct. Firm is experiencing losses is the right answer. The ease with which an investment can be turned into cash is. Exactly. Liquidity makes sense, and it is right choice. The formula for finding V of a company is dash. Great thinking. Debt plus equity is the right choice. Theory which does not agree with theory is called as dash. Right again. Trade-off theory is a valid answer. What is the classification of working capital based on time? Nice work. You chose permanent and temporary, and it is correct. Is the cash a business has for its day-to-day spending? Perfect. Working capital is the correct choice. Which is an example of an external source of finance? Nicely done. Hire purchase is a solid answer. In the theory of capital structure stands for dash. Perfect. Modigliani and Miller is the correct choice. Which of the following can't be a capital structure? Excellent choice. Preference shares only is the right answer. Dash is the owner of the asset in a lease agreement. Valid point. Lesser is true. Earning per share is earnings divided by dash. Great thinking. Number of outstanding share is the right choice. Which of the following assumes constant KD and key? Bravo. Net income approach is the answer. A rise in the general level of prices is called. Good job. Your answer inflation works well here. In Q1 in test indifference point is at EBIT of. Sharp thinking. R1772308 is the right choice. Replacement of machinery is an example of dash. Strong choice. Technological upgradation is the right answer. In traditional approach, which one is correct? Well picked. None of the above is the correct answer. Judicious use of leverage is suggested by. Great job. Traditional approach is the accurate answer. Which is the cheapest source of financing?
Clear logic. Your choice retained earnings is sound and 100% true.
Equity in a firm with debt is called dash. On track. Levered equity is the correct answer. Financial leverage is also known as dash. Smart pick. Trading on equity is the correct choice. Below is the payout policy, except dash.
You got it. Your choice purchase of fixed assets is right.
EBIT is usually the same thing as dash. Good thinking. Operating profit is the right answer. The cheapest source of finance is smart move. Retained earnings is an accurate answer. Financial planning helps in dash.
Correct. Forecasting business situations is the right answer.
Trade-off theory assumes dash. You chose both are correct. And it is correct. What do theory of MEM say? Well reasoned. Capital structure is irrelevant is the correct choice. Who does EPS refer for? Exactly. Earning per share makes sense and it is right choice.
Overall risk refers to.
Nice work. You chose both and it is correct. What is SCA? Right again. Debt service coverage ratio is a valid answer. How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format? Date.
Nice selection. Contact Narayan Changder is the correct and valid answer.